WDXE News, on the air since 1951. This is The Legend. 105.3, 95.3, WDXE.
Hey, that's us, WDXE. It's time for the Friends and Neighbors Hour, brought to you by Hood Company Real Estate, powered by Keller Williams, the number one name in real estate. My guest today is Robin Cobb. Miss Robin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, good. Good to meet you. Good to see you. I've heard your name around. I understand that you're running for office. Is this the first time you've ever done that?
No, sir.
No.
I was a commissioner before.
Okay, so
mayor.
we'll talk a little bit about all that. But you are in Etheridge, Tennessee, this time running for mayor.
No, city commissioner.
City commissioner. Now I got that wrong. I thought you were running for mayor.
No, sir. You run for commissioner in Etheridge.
Okay, so there is a mayor.
There is a mayor that's decided once the election is over and the new officers are sworn in. Then the commissioners decided amongst themselves who will be the mayor for that term.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know. I didn't realize it worked that way.
Yes.
Well, now I learned something.
Yep.
I learned something. So you obviously a citizen of Etheridge.
I am.
Yeah. So where do you call home?
I live on County Farm in Etheridge. Been there 16 years. My husband's been there his whole entire life, the same spot.
Yeah.
Pretty much within a few hundred feet, I think. And we have the same. He has the same neighbors when he was growing up that are there now.
Yeah.
I mean, we got a few new ones, but
Yeah.
pretty
yeah.
much the same.
Yeah. Now you're Cobb. So what's your husband's name?
Eddie.
Eddie Cobb. Okay. Now, are you originally from the area?
No, I'm not. Originally, I'm a military brat, so I kind of lived everywhere as a small child. And then my family is from Franklin County, Tennessee.
Okay.
But the funny thing is I've lived in Lawrence County longer than I've lived in any county.
Sure.
So this is home to me.
It is home. Yeah.
It is.
It's home. It's home. Well, what was, I mean, just to get to know you a little bit and some of your background, what was life like for you growing up? I mean, you say you were an Army brat.
Yes.
So
I've lived in big cities. I lived in D.C. as a child. I've lived in, my daddy's last duty station was Redstone Arsenal, so I've lived in Huntsville, Fort Rooker, Alabama, just different places. So I've got to see a wide variety of communities and neighborhoods and cities.
Now, how did, just because, I mean, that life was somewhat foreign to me, but not to a lot of people. A lot of folks serve in the military and they have families and children. And so, what was school like for you? Did you have to move a lot, or?
Not really. My brother had to change schools more than I did because he's older than I am. So I went to school primarily in Alabama and then Tennessee. By the time I was school age, we were in Alabama. Then we moved to Tennessee. I graduated from college in Alabama.
Okay.
So
where'd you go to college?
I went to Athens State.
Athens State. Well, now, your folks, where were they originally from?
My mother was from Coffee County, and my dad was from Franklin County.
So you are Tennesseans.
We're Tennesseans.
Tennesseans, and spent, like you said, some time in Alabama down there. So where did you end up getting, I guess, to graduate high school? Where was that?
Franklin County.
Franklin County. Okay. So it was there. Interesting. Now Franklin County is
Winchester, Deckard.
Winchester. Yeah, I was trying to think of the city. It was Winchester.
Yes.
I was over. Let's see. We were over in Lincoln County recently. That's, I guess, close to halfway there.
It is. It is about halfway. My mother lives where my family's from. My brother's actually left Franklin County, and he moved about 20 minutes up the backside of Monteagle Mountain. He lives in Altamont.
Okay.
And that's a very, they have a Dollar General, and that's where they shop.
Oh, really?
So it's very small, and my mother lives right almost at Interstate 24 at Pelham.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's a long trip to see family.
But how long? So as you grew up and began to become a young adult, you went to college.
I did.
Okay. And so what was college life like?
Very busy because I worked and paid my way through college as I went and lived on my own. So I've been on my own since I was 18. I worked 2 or 3 jobs sometimes if I needed to get through college, but I wanted to come out debt-free.
So you weren't one of those that accumulated a bunch of college debt?
No, sir. No, I knew my parents didn't have the money, and, the only way to get through it was to work it, and I took what classes I could take and bought the books as I could buy them.
What did you major in?
Education.
Education. So what did you do after that?
I taught school for a pretty good long while. I taught in Tennessee. I taught in Savannah, Georgia.
Okay.
Which was an experience because the school I taught at was right across the street from the Hunter Army Airfield. So I had a good combination of inner city kids and military kids, and that's a unique dynamic, I think, when you see some that are very structured coming from the military base, and then you have some in the inner city who they lived kind of a tumultuous lives. To get those two together and see how they form a friendship and a bond and influence each other. So
that is interesting.
Yeah.
So you've had kind of a diverse background a little bit.
I have. And then I've also, when I left Savannah, I went to teach for Sylvan Learning Center and became the director of education for them in Huntsville, Alabama. And then they opened a center in Lawrenceburg, and so I moved to Lawrenceburg to be the center director here and director of education. And once I got here, it felt like home, so I built a life here.
Yeah. Some people may not be familiar with that learning system. What was it?
It's Sylvan.
Sylvan. I've heard of it.
Yes, it's a tutoring system where the kids come in and you give them individualized tests, and then you build educational programs based on their needs. And it's to help them catch up and get to the grade level that they need to be at in advance. But I did college students, study skills, writing, ACT prep. We did all kinds of things.
Well, you're educated beyond me.
But education's not good if you don't have common sense to go with it.
Well, that's true. That's true. No doubt about that. We see some examples of that every once in a while, don't we?
We do.
I remember Jerry Clower, of course. You may be familiar with Jerry Clower.
Yes.
And I forget what the story was he was telling, but he met some professor somewhere, and they were having a discussion about something. I don't remember what the content was, but basically he told the professor that he said, "You have been educated beyond your intelligence." And I've never forgotten that line. I think it's a funny line.
Yes.
So, anyway, and I actually said that to one fellow one time, and it didn't go over very well. But anyway, I meant it in humor.
It probably didn't.
I meant to be funny, but he didn't think it all that funny. So anyway, it happens.
Right.
So how long have you been in Etheridge?
About 16 years.
Okay, so I may be getting ahead of myself. You married eventually. Tell me about that story.
I did. Oh gosh. I was married before, and we were high school sweethearts, and people grow apart. So when I went to Savannah, it was right after my divorce, just kind of get a fresh start about things. And then I came to Lawrenceburg and really just made a home here. And then I met Eddie, and I thought, after your first marriage, you always say, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
But I did. And he, they kind of wear you down. And then he's home.
Yeah.
Etheridge is home.
Yeah.
It just felt right.
Yeah.
At the time. So
I was trying to think if I may know him. I know a lot of folks, but I was trying to think. I know some other Cobbs,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's related to the Cobbs. I tell you who I know is Kendra and her husband, and she runs the Etheridge child care.
okay.
They're behind Quick Mart.
Mm-hmm. I'm not familiar with her, but there's so many of them spread
is there?
everywhere that they're kin
So I
from
just wondered-
Summertown down to Fall River and down that way.
Yeah. Anyway, her and her husband, she runs that, and I think he works for the power system. But anyway, I wondered if y'all were related.
Could be.
Probably.
Could be.
It's like the Hoods. I mean, they're
They're everywhere.
there's a few of them here and a few of them there,
Right.
and we're probably related somehow. So
Right.
that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So what have you been doing with yourself?
Well, I am a licensed insurance agent, and until tomorrow, we'll be in 50 states. I have to renew license, so I'm working on schooling this week for my insurance license. I also work for Frank Schaefer in his business office.
Okay.
So
All right.
I stay pretty busy.
So you do both. You sell
I do
insurance and work the Frank Shaver. Now Frank, he's had a long time business here. You've been associated with him for a pretty good while, or?
I've known Frank for a long time, but I've only been working for him for probably about 8 months.
Okay.
7, 8 months.
So the business office there. Okay. He's got quite a bunch of business there.
He does.
He sure does.
He does.
Sure
You
Good.
can learn a lot from him.
I tell you, his restaurant and meat market is just about world famous.
Yes.
It's amazing.
We have some world famous people come in there. I never get to see them because I'm in the office, but Jelly Roll's been in. Luke Bryan comes in all the time.
Yeah, I seen. We were traveling up through there not too long ago, and there was a helicopter landing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure who that was, but they were going to Frank's.
Oh yeah.
They were going to Schaefer's.
Yeah.
And there was a helicopter landing up there to go, and it probably was.
Cameron Sexton was in there this last week, so
That's amazing.
we have a lot of people stop in and get things and have stories to tell about it. So
Yeah. Well, I guess you got firsthand too. You can grab some Texas barbecue about any time.
I try to get some of the sliced brisket at least once a week to
Oh,
take
yeah.
home.
That's good stuff.
It is. It is so good.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So, you have children?
I have stepchildren.
Yeah.
I have a stepdaughter and a stepson.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, tell us about your life as much as you want. How about that?
Well, as you see, I have a varied background. I mean, I was born in Germany because my dad was stationed in Germany.
That's interesting.
I know, right? A lot of people don't realize that when you're born overseas and come through with a lot of paperwork and issues like that. So, and this is a funny story about my mother. So I had consulate papers my whole life to give for identification of different things. And my mother finally gave me my birth certificate. I think I was like 50.
Oh, really?
And I said, why haven't I ever seen my birth certificate? She goes, well, I was just holding on to it for you. So that's how parents are so funny with those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm close to my family, and more so probably than Eddie's family, as they don't get together a whole lot.
Yeah.
He's got a couple sisters live here. He's got a couple that live in Florida, so we don't get to see them as much. But really, we're just based in Etheridge, and we stay right there. We're happy at our home, and
Yeah.
we're kind of homebodies and stay in our community.
Well, good deal. Well, good deal. So, well, at some point, I guess Etheridge, the city of Etheridge, things happening in Etheridge, as being home to you has become important to you. What's made you decide to? Have you been a commissioner before?
I have. I was a commissioner before and the mayor.
Okay, so initially, when you first did that, what made you decide to do that?
I guess because I'd always heard stories about how beautiful Etheridge was and what a great community it was and how the people were all connected and everybody knew everybody and everybody took pride in the community. And I kind of saw that that was falling to the way. We have an aging community. We do have some young people that have come in with children. And I was seeing that our community was not as close as what a community our size should be. And so I wanted to come in and make sure that as the kids were coming in, that they had something productive to do. Because, you know, if kids have idle hands, they find things that are not good for them to do.
Oh, sure.
So one of my goals was to bring the community back together and to build up things and make it better for our citizens, not just our older community, but our younger community too. So we did a lot of different things for our community. When I was in there, we had Family Fun Day at the park. We got a playground. We had 2 of those. And then COVID hit. Of course, COVID kind of messed up everything.
Sure.
We had an addition added to our park. We got a small playground now. We've got a pavilion. We got the tennis courts resurfaced so they could do tennis or basketball on them. We've got a super great concession stand and ball field, but kids weren't playing ball there as much, and I know that's picked up some now. But we had a big plan for our park when I was in there, and we did fundraisers to raise money to make those improvements and utilize grants as well.
Where is the park there?
Alexander Park, it's across from the elementary school. You'll turn right by the Masonic Lodge and go back there. It's right back there. Dead ends right into it.
Dead ends into the park.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there a few times, but for people that don't know where it may be, what are some of the activities that are happening there now, or do you know?
There's not any that I'm aware of.
Why do you think that is? I have no idea.
I'm not. I think it's because you have to have a mindset of, you know what, I'm going to work really hard for my community, and I'm going to bring them together, and I'm going to sacrifice my time and think of ways to bring the community together. And that's what we did when I was in there. I mean, Vance was part of my team. John Myers was there before Vance came in. You had Julie Oakley, and Jacqueline Dunn was there, and she's still there. Julie's retired. You just had some great people. Vance, you had Dean Glossett was part of that team, the fire department with Nathan Keaton, the commissioners, everybody teamed together as partners. There was no I in that team. It was all of us. We worked together and came up with ideas. We put blood, sweat, and tears into doing activities to try to bring the community together and to raise money. I mean, we have, like, when I left office, we had over $15,000 in the Etheridge Youth Fund, where we had done fundraisers to put money in there to do improvements to the park.
Interesting. Well, I'll ask you, of course, now, this was during your first go-around.
Yes.
And what happened as far as, did you just decide to walk away, or what?
No, I didn't decide to walk away. I think sometimes people are not happy with change. They don't want change, or they're afraid of change. And I think some people wanted things to just be status quo, and I don't want to have to clean up this, I don't want to have to do this, I don't want a neighbor here, I don't want, they don't want new things. And I know that a community has to be strong to survive. You have to support what you have and bring, like our businesses are local businesses. We have to support that.
Yeah.
We have one of the greatest tourism attractions in our area that our local businesses should be thriving, but people want to come to a community when you have active things going.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it becomes stagnant.
Yeah.
And I don't want our community to be stagnant and just kind of fade away.
Yeah.
We have to be strong and support our local businesses.
Well, you know, whether we like it or not, Lawrence County's population is growing in lots of areas. Etheridge and Summertown in the northern part of the county have been especially attractive in the business that I'm in. I get a lot of calls from people that are looking to move to Tennessee and to move to our area. I mean, this is not uncommon at all for me to get a call. Hey, there's some folks. I was out of the office the other day. I got a call from my office manager there and said, hey, there's some folks here from Illinois. They're looking to move here. When are you going to get back to the office? And I was like, well, I'm on my way back. I'll be there in a few minutes. So 15 minutes later, I'm talking to these folks. And so Tennessee in general is a very attractive place for people that are kind of unhappy where they are because of the political climates or whatever. And we've been blessed to have a really good place to live. And southern middle Tennessee is very attractive to a lot of people. So I'm saying that to say that whether we like it or not, there are a lot of newcomers.
Right. And my position was always, don't be reactive when something happens. Be proactive and prepare before it gets here. So you're not stuck like, oh God, what am I going to do? You already have a plan in place.
Yeah.
So, you know, some people don't like that. They don't want to be proactive. They want to be reactive and think they can't change things, but everything's going to change whether we want it to or not. And we have a great community, and we it's beautiful, and we have some great people in our community. And talking to people when I'm going around getting signatures and campaigning, the thing that I hear is, you know, I used to know everybody on this road from this end to that end.
Right.
Now I know one neighbor.
Yeah.
And that's sad to me because where I live on County Farm, we all know each other.
Yeah.
We all visit each other. We talk across the street to each other, or
Yeah.
they come over, or we share garden things. And I think it should be like that throughout the whole community. And the only way to do that is to bring the community together so they get to know each other.
And that's somewhat, that's somewhat typical and lost, not only in your community, but in a lot of communities. We're not as close-knit as we used to. We were talking about it earlier, about how we spend our time. It used to be with family and friends more, and now we don't spend our time with family and friends so much. We're online most of the time.
Right. That's true.
So much of the time. So, but it does take effort.
It does. It takes a lot of effort, and it takes a team. When I read things now and it says, I did this or I did this, I never felt that way when I was as a commissioner or a mayor. I never felt that I did anything. I felt like we as a team did everything because we worked together with the fire department. We worked together with the police department. We worked within ourselves when we did our events. It was not one person that did it. It was all of us. And you would be surprised at the people in the community. Like we did the first farm to table in Lawrence County. I know Lawrenceburg's taking it now because I went out of office and nobody did it in Etheridge, but we had ladies from the community that come together and decorated tables, provided the dessert, helped decorate, got it together, clean up, and then afterwards helped distribute the leftover food to people in our community who needed it.
Yeah.
I didn't do that myself. That was a team. And it's very discouraging to hear somebody say that they did everything.
Yeah.
Nobody does everything. It's
Well,
a team.
it does take, especially with a community effort. You're right. There's people need to participate and be a part of it.
Right.
But there is a leadership role
There is.
to kind of spur things on.
Yes. And it's important for the leader to want things for the community besides monetary things. A community is more than money or bills or things like that. It's about the people in the community and what's best for them.
Yeah, yeah.
And getting them together.
What do you see, and I'll get to maybe some specifics later because I know a little bit about some of the things some efforts that have been made in the area up there, and maybe still trying to be made, those kind of things.
Right.
But what do you see as some of the challenges for Etheridge, the city of Etheridge?
Well, we don't have a lot of money in the city of Etheridge, and we do depend on grants. You have to look at the community, and we're not a rich community. I mean, if you think the average median income for a family is probably $50,000, maybe $60,000, maybe a little higher now with inflation, but people don't have a lot of money to do things, but they have time.
Yeah.
And I think one of the key things that's hard to find, well, you have to really get out and search for it, is getting people to donate their time, to make the effort to do.
Okay.
It's like I can sit at home and say, well, I'd like for this to happen and this to happen, but if I'm not willing to get up and do something and move and put one step in front of the other, it's not going to accomplish it. So I think one of the struggles we have, besides the money, is getting out there and being a voice for the people and to the people and talking to them.
Well, money is always an issue.
Yes, it is.
Money's always an issue, and I know that as far as city funding, sales tax is probably the only
Yes.
real income for or grants.
Right, because we have no property tax.
So there's no property tax, and I know nobody wants a property tax.
No,
Nobody wants one.
I sure don't want one.
No, nobody does. However, and I'm just throwing this out for conversation. Do you think there will ever be a point in the city of Etheridge that they may have to look at that?
I think it may be looked at. I don't think it's beneficial at this point. I don't think anybody needs that or wants that.
Mm-mm.
I think if we can build up our businesses and keep searching for those grants, that we'll be okay. We may not thrive and be big like Spring Hill or like Lawrenceburg or Florence, but we will be able to keep our community together like it is without a land tax.
Yeah. Well, been able to do it so far.
Yes, we have. And it's careful. I mean, you have to be careful how you spend things, and you got to look at grants. And, you know, I was very fortunate when I was in as mayor because we had a good coalition between the mayors, the county executive. We all worked together, Jesse and Blake and Bubba and TR and I. We all worked together closely and helped. And if they had some ideas come up or heard of something, they would always pass it along. So it's real important to have that coalition with other government entities, because you might not know if you're sitting in Etheridge by yourself, not listening, you may not see what's available. So you know that we have a seat on different committees in the county that if somebody from our city doesn't go, you don't hear what's coming, you don't hear what's available. So you have to be dedicated to spend your time, your free time, to go out and learn and bring that back to your town.
Well, it's not, you know, someone who wants to take this on, to become a commissioner or a mayor of a small town like that. I'm sure the salary is not all that great.
No, I mean, you just get, I mean, it's very minimal. And I donated my salary back to the Etheridge Youth Fund every month because that's how important our kids and our future are to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess my point is you can't be in it for the money.
No, absolutely not. No, you're definitely not in it for money. There is no money there.
Because there's just not any money there.
No, there's not.
But it is your home.
It is my home.
Yeah, and so it's something that you care about.
Yes.
And what I was going to get to, too, is that you mentioned the cooperation between the other governments, other county and city governments, because there is a merging almost, not necessarily one going and taking over the other, but we touch.
Right.
You know, the Lawrenceburg city limits probably reaches the Etheridge city limits.
It does.
And so we're close kin as far as being Lawrenceburg and then Etheridge.
Yes.
And like a lot of, you know, growth areas, when you're a visitor to the community passing through, you don't really know when you're leaving one going to the other.
Unless you're paying attention to the
Unless
signs.
you're really paying attention to the signs.
Yes.
So it's we're bleeding into each other, growing into each other, I should say. And so north of Lawrenceburg, you know, you've got the new hotels that are going up. You've got the new hardware store that's just finishing up, and you know, a step further and you're in Etheridge.
Yes.
So the impact of the growth is happening whether we like it or not.
It is.
And so you're talking about having to prepare for that. So Etheridge is in a unique spot right there.
We are.
So what do you do with it?
Well, if we're going to maintain it.
I'll say this, because being in the real estate business, I happen to know that there were some efforts made and have been made for some housing development in that area. So what's your take on that?
I think housing developments are a good thing if they're kept to a certain amount. I mean, I don't think you should bring in 4,500 apartments or anything like that. But if you want to bring in some small starter homes or young couples or retired people that want to live in it, I think that's good, because you have to we have people leaving So you have to have somewhere for your new people to come, and they're coming whether we want them to come or not.
Right. Right.
So I think being proactive about that is the big thing. I don't think our town should be swamped with anything, but I think it should be maintained and be proactive and to keep
Yeah.
it from being taken over.
Do you see see those kind of efforts when someone wants to make an investment in an area? Do you see that as a positive thing?
I do, because I think you have to have investments in your community, or your community will be stagnant and will die. It's like new businesses coming in. I mean, we always want to support our new businesses coming in, but we want to keep supporting our businesses that are there. Do you know at one point Etheridge had 5 grocery stores before the Depression?
No, I did not know that.
It was a booming town. 2 barbershops,
Yeah.
5 grocery stores, 4 lumber mills. I mean, that's where our community was the bright, busy spot in this county until the automobile came. The automobile kind of helped people travel out more, but
Sure.
I mean, we were a booming town. That's, we just talked about till Depression. It was a booming town.
Yeah.
They had 400 something people living there then.
Yeah, that's amazing to think about some of the history
It
in,
is.
in our communities, and Etheridge is no exception.
We have a rich history. I mean, when just reading through and learning about Etheridge, it's amazing the things that we've had there.
Yeah, yeah. When I was a kid, I grew up in New Prospect,
Okay.
and of course we had a little ball team, and we'd play at Etheridge every once in a while. They'd play with us every once in a while. There was that community rivalry, that kind of thing. And I was trying to think, the baseball field. Isn't there a baseball field? There is a baseball field.
Yeah,
That's at the
at
park.
Alexander Park,
That's
yes.
at the park. Is that being utilized much?
I think they are. They were playing, like Hustle Factory, I think, was playing there, and
Okay.
there's some there, and the school uses it as well too, but not as much as we could be using it probably.
Very good. So that was your kind of your first go around
It was.
with the city, and so now we're in a new day.
We are.
We're in a new day, and elections. When is the elections?
Tuesday.
This coming Tuesday. So how's the campaign been going?
It's been going really good.
What's the feel?
It's different this time than it was when I campaigned before. People really have a lot to say now, where before they weren't saying a whole lot. And like I said earlier, what I'm getting from a lot of the older people is, I used to know everybody. Now I know one neighbor, and they kind of feel isolated. And I hate to see that older people. I talked to one lady the other day for probably 45 minutes standing on the front porch, and it was like sitting down with my grandmother visiting. I mean, just the things that we talked about and canon. It was they're craving company, they're craving friendship and relationships and interaction with people, and they're just not getting it.
Now, is there just one office that's up for grabs here?
Yes,
So it's
one
just-
office at this time, and then the next election will be 2 offices are up
Okay, so
for
there's
grabs.
one. So there's one election here, one office that's the
Right.
one commission seat, I should
Yes.
say,
Yes.
that's up. And so when you're out and visiting, you mentioned the. So what do you think that you can do, I guess, to as a commissioner to make a difference in that?
Well, like we did before, we did community activities together. We did the Family Fun Day. We did the Farm to Table. We've had a lot of ideas that we wanted to start implementing. We have like we want to do movies in the park where you can come and we can project movies and bring a blanket, do popcorn. We have a great concession stand. Just things to bring the community together. Music, someone suggested, well, we got the caboose there that we have the stage built around. We've had musicians come up there for different events. We can have a musician to come up there and play, and people just come and sit around.
Yeah.
Just things for the community to get together and do things.
Okay. Well, that's good and fun. And matter of fact, we were traveling last Saturday. My grandson had a ball tournament over in Lewisburg. Well, if you leave here and go to Lewisburg, you have to go through a little town called Centerville. You know what I'm talking about? Now, Centerville's probably maybe a little bigger than Etheridge, maybe, but it's a very small town. Very, very small town. Just a little wide spot in the road, as we like to say. Well, we're on our way back Saturday night, and they evidently had some kind of a community event. I guess it was related to Halloween. The houses were decorated, and there was a park area, and there were booth tents up, lights up. There was a ton of people there, and we commented as we went through how cool that was, how neat that was for a community like that to do something like that.
Yes.
And we were like, man, we would. It just felt so homey, It felt so fun to do stuff like that. Is that the kind of thing you like to see happen, or
I would.
a little
I
more?
would. And when we've done our events, we've had people come from not just this county but surrounding counties too come to our events because it was so exciting. I mean, we had Congressman Green, who he's on the news a lot now. He came
Yeah.
and actually got in a bidding auction with John Sharp over one of Miss Becky Sharp's coconut cakes at the
Oh, my
cake
gosh.
auction, and loaned us one of his guys, a
Yeah.
young guy, probably early 20s, to be our auctioneer, and he'd probably never even heard an auction
Yeah.
before. It was so funny. So you have to be able to reach out to people outside of our community, like state legislators or U.S. senators and things, and get them to say,
Well,
"Hey, we're here.
Well,
Come
I have
look
to
at
know,
us."
did he outbid John Sharp?
Not on the first one, but Miss Sharp made two. So he did get a cake on the second one. He let John have it. So I mean, we just had a lot of fun. We had a chili cook-off, and Tommy Marshall won that. And I mean, we had a lot of chili in there, and he
Oh, my
won. So
gosh.
that went to a local person, but people just had a great time doing it.
Yeah.
We had some vendors set up and things like that, but. When you look at the financial situation of Etheridge, with the money you have coming in, you have to be very careful of how you spend it and
Sure.
what you spend it on and what you can do with the community. And like you said, grants. I mean, we got some great grants when I was in there. We got the home improvement grant for some of our seniors that, we applied for the grant. We got it. I took applications to individuals that, we knew needed the help improvement on their homes to help
Right.
make their lives better, whether it be ramps or redoing a bathroom or, whatever it was that they needed in their homes. So we did that, and we got several park grants to do. The fire department, we assisted them. Really, we don't do a whole lot. They do a lot, but we do assist them in getting grants for different fire trucks and equipment and things like that. And the police department is always applying for grants to improve, what they're doing and their equipment and things like that. So
That's good. Well, when you drive through, of course I have, drive through some of the downtown, what I'll call the downtown streets of Etheridge, the community right there in the heart. It's an older community.
it is.
They're older homes.
It is.
And some are very well kept, some not so well.
But you're starting to see a small revival in that. It's like people are coming in, and when houses are condemned or the people are no longer there, and they're trying to buy those places, and they're either redoing the homes or clearing them off and building new ones, because people are taking pride in our community. They want to see it improve and be beautiful like it always was.
Yes, yeah. I got a text message. Sometimes I get messages of people listening and they don't necessarily want to call in. I was going to say, and speeding tickets, that's all it says. You want to comment on the speeding ticket? That seems to be a big topic no matter who we talk to.
It does. And I always felt this way about the police department. Of course, John Myers started out, I started out, John Myers was our chief of police.
Yes.
And he ran the police department wonderfully.
Yes.
I'm not a police officer. I'm not trained to be a police officer. Then you had, Vance came in when John left, and Vance was fantastic. He was on top of anything that he could possibly do for our city, very dedicated. Again, he was trained as a police officer. Now you have Dean.
Yeah.
What I will say is I'm not qualified to tell a police officer how to do his job.
Yeah.
We want our city safe.
Yeah.
So if you don't want a ticket, don't speed through our
There
town.
you go. There you
And
go.
I'm not being smart about that. I'm
No,
just
no.
saying, because, people don't want us to come through Lawrenceburg and do 60 miles an hour in a 40-mile zone or 35-mile zone.
Sure.
We don't want the same thing, because we have two of the most dangerous intersections probably in the county.
Yeah.
Right there at Brewer Road and Campbellsville Pike.
Yes.
And then right there at Quick Mart. Those are two of the most dangerous intersections. And even right there coming out at Marshall's is kind of hard sometimes to see, and a lot of traffic. So
Yeah, that is a dangerous spot, and
Yeah.
people do need to take their cautions, and the speed limits are there for a reason.
it is.
For
And it's
that.
because we've seen fatalities
Yeah.
through there, and a lot of times it's attributed to speed. So
Yeah,
we want our people to be safe, not just our people, but all the people that come through our city.
yeah, yeah. Though I think there's always the idea that we like we always like to complain about getting a speeding ticket no matter what, but it is safer for us to obey the
It
traffic
is.
signals and the traffic
It
laws,
is.
no doubt. Well, are you feeling pretty good about your campaign at this point?
I do. I feel really good. I've been getting some really good response from the community, and the people that I've talked to are really excited. They want honesty and transparency. They don't want you to intrude on their lives. You know what I mean? They don't want you to come to your house and just rattle on about things. They want you to be available for them. They want to do things. They want the community to come together. and especially our aging community, they definitely see that our kids are so important to us, and that we have got to do something to keep them on track and get them a positive way forward.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we have, and I might be biased, but we do have the most awesome elementary school ever. So I know people that want to go to Etheridge that maybe don't necessarily live in our Etheridge area,
Yeah.
because it's great.
It's a very popular school.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Very well run school. We have a lot of good run schools. No
We
doubt.
do. We
No
do.
doubt. Good community schools, and that's the way we like it. That's one of the reasons that Lawrence County in general is attractive for that. Hey, we have someone you may not be able to hear, but I'll try to relay what she says. Hey, good morning. You're on WDXE with us.
Yes, the UT Extension Center has a directory out, and she probably is familiar with it, but it's a list of, and it's relatively new. Calvin wasn't there the day I called, but the lady I talked to, and it has a listing of farms in Lawrence County, and there's several in Etheridge that are selling online. And my impression is they're selling online, but they also want people in the county to know this, that may be ordering things online other places. But I was wondering, do they get sales tax from the online sales in Etheridge? And I'm going to hang up.
Okay. All right. Thank you. If you couldn't hear her, she was talking about the farm life in Etheridge, and there are several farms, I guess, may or may not be in the city limits of Etheridge, but they do a lot of online selling, that kind of thing. Of course, the Amish do a lot of selling, but they may not necessarily be right in the city,
Right.
so you really can't collect sales tax
Right.
on anything that's not inside the city limits.
Correct.
But there may be some benefit from some. Do you see that, or have you seen that?
I haven't seen that on online sales. No, I haven't seen that.
All right,
I
well,
mean,
it
I
was-
could check into that, but not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I was told that there were some, I guess, collection from online sales of some sort that the city may, if it comes out of there. But I'm not sure about that, so I couldn't comment intelligently about that.
Right.
But her question was, it had to do with some of these Tennessee or Lawrence County farmers that are selling products online and what have you. I don't know the auction, the Plowboy auction.
It's outside the
It's
city.
outside the city.
It is.
Yeah. The city of Etheridge footprint goes from where to where?
It goes from County Farm Road, and then it ends on the main highway. It goes all the way past where, trying to think what it would be, what it's called now. On the left, there's like a machine shop business or something that was right there. And on the right is the antique store that used to be years ago, Swinging Door, Owl's Nest.
Oh, yeah,
JR's Roadhouse, right, on past that a little bit that way. And then it goes out. Of course, not all of County Farm is in Etheridge city limits. It starts about
Yeah.
a quarter of a mile before you get to my house, and then when you go down towards the crossroads, it's just maybe a mile out that way. So it's not that big encompassing, so there's probably not a
Yeah.
lot of farmland or farmers that are in the city limits.
That may be a question too.
It is. That's a great question.
Is can more territory be annexed into the city?
We actually did annex some when I was in there. Over behind the ball field, there was an area there, and we annexed that property into,
Yeah.
which goes over to Brewer Road.
What's the process of doing that?
Well, if a landowner wants to be annexed in, we can petition to annex that in. If they agree and we agree, then, I mean, there's some paperwork involved in it and things, but we can annex in it if they want to be in the city limits.
All right. And actually, since there's no property tax, what would be the opposition? I mean, what would be the reason not to be?
Right.
I mean, that's
Exactly.
That's the reason.
It's a great place.
Well,
Why
you know,
would there be
I-
opposition?
I'm just questioning. Of course, for Lawrenceburg, of course, there's areas where I know that there are areas where Lawrenceburg would probably like to extend, but the people that live there say no way because
Right.
we don't want the city,
Right.
taxed.
And that's kind of where we are. It's like we appreciate Lawrenceburg. I love Blake Lay. I mean, he's one of my good friends. But, we're Etheridge, and we want to stay Etheridge. And the goal is to make us strong enough that people aren't tempted to say, well, you know what, I want to be part of Lawrenceburg, or I want to be part of this.
Yeah.
We want our community to stay strong. And
So
whole
you
as it
would
is.
be opposed to the city of Lawrenceburg swallowing up Etheridge and just making it part of Lawrenceburg?
I'm going to go with yes. I probably would be opposed to that.
And I knew you
and
would.
I have to say, because I'm just spoiled where I'm at. I've got great neighbors. We've got a beautiful piece of property. It's so peaceful. Our whole community is so peaceful. I don't want anything to come in and take us over to make it not peaceful.
Do you know my buddy up there, Mr. Billy Smith?
I do.
You know Billy?
I do.
Well, he calls me here just about every morning. He's
Does
got a lawnmower or two, or he brings some gifts in here sometimes that we give away, that kind of thing.
He's very active
I
when you
heard-
do stuff. He's very active.
He's on top of it up there. So
He is.
He's
Never misses a meeting.
really.
Not that I can't think of a meeting when I was in there that he ever
Yeah,
missed.
he's a pretty good guitar player too.
Yeah, he is. He picked for us, actually. We had a thing, a get together, and he picked and played, and him and Vance and a few more of them.
Vance, he's been known to play a guitar too, and dobro and anything else you
I
hand
know.
Anything else you
I'm,
hand
listen, I can say this about Etheridge. You think of the people that's come out of Etheridge that are great people and are doing great things.
Yeah.
We start them. It's like they start with us, and then they bloom into bigger
Bloom
things
into
and
them.
leave us.
Ah.
I don't want to bloom into bigger things and leave. I want to be right there.
Well, I would brag on Vance a little bit, but he brags on himself enough. So.
Hey, he's a go-getter, that's for sure. He was always looking for grants and things to better our. I mean, he was working on a grant when I went out of office working with the TBI to get us a new building, like a $7 million building. All Etheridge would have had to done was to purchase the land to put it on.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's a go-getter. He wants to see things better and improved, and he wants things better.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Was there opposition to that, or?
There was the price of the land, the commission at the time after I went out.
You know, I had come to think of it. I remember when he was working on that because he asked me about some land.
Right. And he had a plan too. I mean, with his whole thing, I mean, we've talked about it numerous times, but he had a budget planned out to show how that land could be paid off in just a few years.
Yeah.
To get that big facility. And it would have been police department. We could put the fire department in there, community center in there. I mean, lots of things that we could have done with that building.
Well, that's interesting.
You have to ask him about it when he comes on your show one day.
Well,
Ask him
I
about
did.
that.
You know, I'm familiar with it a little bit because he and I have been buddies a long time. I sold his father's estate for him many years ago, and that's when we first got to know each other. So, but we've been buddies ever since. And but I remember him working. I remember he was with Etheridge. I remember him working on that because me and him talked about some tracts of land and
Right.
and what we might could grab a hold of and work on. Well, that's interesting. But you have, I'm sure, there was opposition to this.
Yes, I'm sure there was. It didn't come to fruition,
Well, yeah,
so
no,
we know
it didn't
there was
happen.
opposition.
It
But-
didn't happen.
Yeah,
And
and people sometimes are scared to take leaps of faith about things that happen, and I'm okay with that. I mean, you got to go slow with things, but you just got to continuously move forward at some pace to make progress with your community
Yeah.
and make it strong. Because I don't want us to be swallowed up by Lawrenceburg.
No, and I don't think anybody really wants that.
No.
I don't think anybody even.
I don't know anybody. I don't personally know anybody in Etheridge that wants that to happen.
Yeah, I don't. And I mean, it's not a reality. It's not going to happen because I don't think politically anybody would ever be for that. So
Right.
it's just not going to happen. But you do have to face the realities of the growth that's hitting you.
Yes.
And you have to have somebody in place that's willing to work on it
Yes.
and take the heat for doing so, because there's going to be decisions that have to be made. You know, and I'm just wondering how that works with you. Let's.
Well, I felt like I was baptized by fire when I went in. I took a lot of heat for a lot of things that I agreed with. So I mean, I took the heat for it. Everybody may not have agreed with it, but I always tried to keep my community in mind when I made decisions or voted on something or brought something up. I mean,
Yeah.
I tried to think about, is this going to make our community stronger and keep us intact and be able to survive?
Right. Do you happen to know do you know about the Etheridge? I say I got a text message. Etheridge got a hang on, a new famous Mack dealership.
Oh, no. That's great.
The Mack truck dealership up there. Rodney Yates. You know Rodney?
I don't.
Okay. Well, anyway, he's a listener too, and if you'll, that's I guess where I was trying to figure out is where Etheridge actually started on the north of Lawrenceburg.
Mm-hmm. Right there, where County Farm Road is, it's right there. Right by Craig Manufacturing.
Okay, so Craig Manufacturing.
Is
So-
in Lawrenceburg, but
so-
right there on the highway.
So on the other side of the highway, you've got what used to be J.W. Garland. Is that in Etheridge?
Yes.
It is in Etheridge.
Yes.
And then coming back further south, the Mack truck place is right there too.
On the right.
On the right. So is it in Etheridge? Evidently it is.
I think so. We have so many yards off the main highway, I think, on that side.
So it's part of the Etheridge properties in the city limits of Etheridge. All right. Well,
Pretty
he
sure it
says
is.
my buddy says yes. He's Etheridge. Very good.
Well, I appreciate his vote.
Yeah. Very, very good. All right. Well, I'm trying to think of anything else I could ask you. Is there anything you'd like to elaborate on? We've got about 6 or 8 more minutes, and anything that's sticking out in your mind that needs to be handled or addressed, or something you'd like to see different. What's your main cause for running this time?
I really want to see Etheridge be a strong community, and be a intertwined community. I want us to be able to know our neighbors. I mean, I know mine, but I want other people that I've talked to in the community who they don't see their neighbors, they don't talk to their neighbors. And I think about what happened with the hurricanes in the communities that were not expecting anything like that to happen. And you see all the videos on social media where they talk about the most important thing to them at that time was their community around them. But then you think, if you don't know anybody, how much of a community are you feeling? So I think that's one of the important things, is we need to get our community back together and make it strong.
Okay. We may have a question. Let me see if we got somebody here. Good morning. You're on WDXE with us.
Yeah, Jeff, ask her what happened to the Etheridge Community Building.
The Etheridge Community Building. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll ask her about that. Thank you. Did you hear that?
I did.
What happened to the Etheridge Community Building?
That's a good question. Before I even came into office, it was the Etheridge Community Center, owned by a private group.
Yes.
And then that owned the community building, and then they owned the little park right
Yes.
there across from Marshall's. And that was privately owned, and then they sold it. I mean, we didn't have anything to do with that. That wasn't ours.
So it
to
really
do
wasn't a
with.
city property.
No. Not when I came in, it wasn't. It was privately owned by the community club, and they sold it.
Now, that was a question I asked, I guess, your opponent the other, because I thought it was an Etheridge owned property too, but it actually wasn't.
Right.
So that was privately owned, but it was just known as Etheridge.
Well, it was owned by a community group, from my
community
understanding,
group.
and then the community group sold it out to somebody. And then, of course, at the bottom, George Varellis owns it, but I don't think he owns the actual building the community center was in. I think somebody converted that into a bed and breakfast.
Yeah, that was privately owned. It wasn't city owned.
No.
It wasn't city owned. That's interesting. But I think a lot of people assumed it was.
I think they did. I mean, I've heard that a lot, but it was the community group that owned it. It wasn't the city. Now, the city may have owned it at some point and sold it to the community group, but not during my tenure.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Interesting, because again, like I said, I think a lot of people just assumed it belonged to the city, but it really didn't.
And the project that Vance was working on would have given us an area to have a community center type of situation with the building.
We're winding down, but now people want to talk. So let's. Hey, good morning. How are you?
Yes, I've been listening to Miss Cobb talk, and I noticed she said that she wanted to be a voice for the people. And I was here last time that she was mayor, and I hope that she will be a voice for the people next time around if she's reelected. Because last time she wasn't. There were so many people that were very concerned about this development. There were lots of meetings, lots of people trying to not have us turn into Columbia, not have houses packed on top of each other. And she didn't listen to the people. There were businesses trying to come into residential areas and be rezoned commercial where our children play. And we begged them, please don't do this. Have businesses on the highway, have them down on the square, but not in our neighborhoods. And she didn't listen to us then either.
Well,
that's probably why she lost the re-election last time.
Well, I'll let
So
her.
I do hope that she'll listen.
Well, I'll let her comment on that. Okay.
Okay, thank
Right.
you.
I don't know if you heard that a lot, but
I did.
okay.
I'm not sure what businesses was wanting to be residential. I don't know that. And this was the housing developments that you were talking about earlier, where
Yeah, that got a lot of attention. Pull the
it
mic
did.
up a little closer if you want to.
it did get a lot of attention. And the housing development that was wanting to come in was actually behind the ballpark, and it was going to be a slow development. And I think my understanding was that they weren't going to pop in 100 houses at one time. It would be a house and then a slow development, like development coming through any place. It'd be where they overran Spring Hill. That was not the situation here, and there was going to have to be infrastructure before anything was put in.
Yeah.
Before any houses were put in, as far as sewage and sidewalks and roads and things like that was going to have to be put in place before this development could even happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was going to have to follow guidelines of fire hydrants and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
There's a lot to it. And I do want to be a voice for the people, and I do know that we have to be strong and we have to have some growth. Maybe not necessarily, we're not going to drop in 100 houses by any means, and I'm not for that at all. I mean, I'm not for overcrowding our community.
Right.
But I am for progressing our community and making it better for our people. And
Right.
we don't have property tax. We have to rely on the people that are there to spend money.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, we're running kind of out of time at the moment, but I happen to know the developer. We've done some business together. He's in the real estate business, and a good guy.
Yes, he is.
I knew the plans because I knew him personally, and he would relay to me some of the stories about how he was running some opposition, and there was the idea that there was going to be an explosion of houses, but I happen to know that he would only build one at a time.
Right. Right.
Because any developer would, and I've watched developments throughout the county here. It takes years sometimes for a subdivision to actually fill up.
Right.
And so it takes a long time. But
It
I mean,
does.
it's still okay if you're not for it. You know,
Right.
if you don't want it, then you don't want it.
Right.
So that's okay. But I think there was probably some misinformation about.
I think there was a lot of misinformation when you have somebody going door to door spreading misinformation is really the bad part and it's not 100 houses, like I said, dropping at one time. It's going to be a house and then another house, which is what happens anyway.
Yeah.
It was just going to be in a designated area.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we need more housing, but no, I don't want 100 houses dropped in on our community. But I knew coming one at a time, it would take 100 years to fill up a place.
The subdivision that I think of, I'll give you an example. The subdivision that's just south of Lawrence County High School on Springer Road in town, Tobin Square is where they're at. That subdivision took nearly 20 years to fill up.
Right.
And I don't think it's full yet. There's still some lots.
Right.
So I mean that's the kind of development that we see in almost any part of the county here. When someone wants to do a housing development, it takes years for them to fill up.
And these weren't low income houses. I mean, these were nice houses.
Yeah, a good deal. Hey, we've run up against the clock, and our guest today has been Robin Cobb. She's running for a commission seat in Etheridge. I appreciate you being on with me.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
All right, and we're going to join the rest of the programming in progress here if I can get my buttons pushed right. And we appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
See if this is going to work. Anyway, thank you for being here, okay? Bye-bye.
The economy slipping into recession.
Fox's Jenny Casola. President Biden just put out a statement. Today's report shows how far we've come since he took office from the worst economic crisis